In this video, we're going to show you how combat works in On Bloody Ground. A round of combat begins once a unit's successfully charged into an enemy unit. So for this example, we're going to presume that the Saxon Thanes, a unit of 21 with light armour, shields, hand weapons that hit on 4+ and wound on 4+, and a leadership of 8, have charged into the unit of 18 Viking Herdmen, who also have light armour, shields, hand weapons that hit on 3+, so slightly better than the Thanes, and wound on 4+, and have a leadership value of 7+. As both units have hand weapons, the front two ranks are able to attack. So we have 14 attacks with the Saxon Thanes and 12 attacks with the Viking Herdmen. Simultaneous combat means that everyone that can fight at the start of the combat is able to fight, no matter the casualties. So we'll start with the charging unit, which is the Saxon Thanes. They get a bonus for charging. So they normally hit on a 4+, but because the Viking Herdmen have got shields, this is now a 5+, but they do get to re-roll any misses. So as we can see, they've managed to get 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, but they're allowed to re-roll, thankfully. And this gives them another 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. The Viking Herdmen have got a 5+ armour save, which we'll roll for now. And they managed to block 4 of the initial hits. The Saxon Thanes now wound on a 4+, and they managed to wound 2, which is effectively 2 kills. So we'll remove those straight away. Moving on to the Herdmen's attack, they hit on a 3+, because the Thanes have got shields. That's now a 4+, but they didn't charge, so they don't get the reroll. So let's see what they get. Okay, so that's not too terrible. That is 2, 4, 6, 7 hits. The Saxon Thanes have got 5+ armour save, and they managed to save just 1. And the Herdmen wound on a 4+, and they managed to get 4 wounds or 4 kills, which we'll remove straight away. Once the combat's over, we'll need to work out the combat score, and we can see that the Saxon Thanes have killed 2 and have won 2 ranks, giving them a combat score of 4. And the Viking Herdmen killed 4 and have got 1, 2 remaining ranks. That gives them a combat score of 6. Remember that for infantry, a rank has to have 5 miniatures remaining to count during combat. So the Viking Herdmen have won that round of combat, and they gain a momentum marker with 1 marked on it for this combat. At the end of each combat, the loser is required to take a pushback test, which is basically a leadership test, minus any modifiers that the winner has for momentum. So the Saxon Thanes have a leadership of 8, and because the Viking Herdmen have 1 momentum, the Thanes now require a 9 on their pushback test. And they get an 8, which is obviously a foul. That means they lose another member of their unit. Now, this guy isn't necessarily killed, but, you know, he's part of the back ranks. He might see that the combat isn't going too well and decide that he's had enough of the fight and is on his toes. So we remove him, and the losers are pushed back 2 inches. And then we will move on to fight a consecutive combat in the same round. Okay, so even though both sides have taken casualties, we can see that we've still got 14 Saxon Thanes in base contact with the Viking Herdmen, and we've still got 2 ranks, meaning 12 Herdmen in contact with the Thanes. At the beginning of each consecutive round of combat, you align the troops to get the most fighting possible. So we'll go ahead and roll 14 dice for the Saxon Thanes. Again, they're needing 5s to hit, but no re-rolls this time. So they managed to hit 3 times. The Vikings have an armor save of 5+, so we'll see what they save. Very good saving roll. So the Saxon Thanes now have a chance to wound on a dice roll of 4+ and score no wounds. So we'll move on to the 12 Herdmen. They're slightly better at hitting, so they're hitting on a 4, and they managed to get quite a few hits. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 hits. The armor save with the Thanes again is a 5+, and they manage a fantastic number of armor saves, which leaves the Vikings with 3 dice to roll to wound on a 4+, and they manage 1 wound. So we'll take that casualty off. And then the combat score is 2 ranks for the Herdmen plus a kill. So their combat score is 3. 2 ranks for the Saxon Thanes. So unfortunately for the Thanes, they have lost again. So we increase the momentum to 2. Remove the casualty. And we need to take another pushback test for the defeated Thanes. Now we know again their leadership is 8+. The Vikings have 2 momentum, so they now require a 10+ to pass their test, which they failed again. So because they rolled an 8, they lose another 2 members of their unit. These guys have decided that discretion is the better part of valor and have left the battle. And the Thanes are pushed back another 2 inches, and then we will fight a 3rd consecutive combat. Okay, so as we can see now, the Thanes have suffered a casualty in the fighting rank, so they only have 13 guys fighting, and the Herdmen have still got their full 12. So we'll roll for the Thanes first, again needing 5s to hit. A little better this time, so we get 3, 4, 6 hits. The Herdmen are saving on an armor save of 5+, and they managed to save just 1. So the Thanes are wounding on a 4+. So okay, they managed 2 wounds or 2 kills, which we'll remove now. And then the Herdmen, again, are hitting on, normally on a 3s, but 4s because of the Thane shield, so 4s to hit. And not so good this time. And then we've got the armor save for the Thanes, which is a 5+. And they actually managed to save 3. So, which leaves the Herdmen with the opportunity to roll 2 dice to wound on a 4, and they actually do kill 2. So, the combat result again. So we've got 2 ranks for the Herdmen plus 2 kills, giving a combat score of 4. We've only got 1 rank now for the Saxon Thanes because again this unit doesn't meet the required minimum of 5 miniatures. So 1 rank plus 2 kills. So the Herdmen have won the combat again and gain an extra 1 to momentum. Which means, as you know, that the Saxon Thanes are required to take a pushback test again with their basic 8+. And as you can see, 3 momentum, which means that the Thanes now need to roll an 11. Now, because this is the 3rd consecutive combat, if the Thanes fail this test, they will break from the combat, which basically means that the unit is destroyed and removed. Again, it doesn't mean that every member of the unit is killed, but that they are no longer in a formation where they can continue to fight. So the troops will either retire or run from the battlefield. So let's see what they get. So we need an 11, and they just fail, which means that the Thanes are removed from the combat. But before removing this unit, any friendly troops within 6 inches that are not also in combat are required to take a panic test. Once we've done that, we remove the defeated unit, remove the momentum marker, and the victorious unit is able to make a surge move, which is your standard maneuver. So you can pivot, move, and then pivot to a more advantageous position, ready for the next turn. As you can see from this example, combat on bloody ground can be brutal, and there tends to be a lot of it. During the charge phase of each turn, units will declare charges, and any successful charges will result in an immediate round of combat. During each round of combat, you can also fight several consecutive combats, with battles being pushed this way and that, depending on who wins and whether a unit that is beaten in combat fails or passes its pushback test. Also, during the combat phase of a turn, any units that are still in base contact with enemy units will fight another round of combat. So each of those can potentially have many consecutive combats as well. So there will be lots of fighting during every game of On Bloody Ground.